The sunrise painted Brooklyn Bridge in shades of gold, but Eleanor Whitmore couldn't see the beauty anymore. She stood at her penthouse window 40 floors above the city, watching the world wake up below. 47 unread emails, 12 missed calls, a board meeting in 3 hours that would decide whether 400 people kept their jobs. She was 52 years old with a $3 billion empire. Forbes called her the Iron Woman of Tech. But standing alone in 10,000 square feet of empty space, Eleanor felt impossibly small. "They say when you reach the top, you can see everything," she whispered. "But no one tells you that at the top. You stand alone." 4 miles away in Queens, James Carter knelt on worn linoleum, fixing a radiator that had died for the third time this month. Behind him, his 7-year-old daughter Sophie slept peacefully, clutching her stuffed rabbit. On the wall hung a photograph from 4 years ago. James, in a press suit beside his office door, marked Senior Project Manager. His wife Rebecca, radiant, her hand on his shoulder. Sophie, barely 3, grinning between them. Before the delivery truck ran the red light. Before the funeral. Before everything fell apart. James tightened the last bolt with scraped knuckles. The radiator coughed to life. He glanced at his sleeping daughter and felt his chest tighten with fierce love. "Time doesn't heal," he murmured. "It just teaches you to live with the whole." Monday morning, 7:15 a.m., Line 6, subway northbound. Eleanor stepped into the crowded train car, and for the first time in 15 years, no one noticed her. Her driver was sick. The backup car stuck in traffic. She had a crucial 9:30 meeting, so she did what she hadn't done in 15 years, took the subway. The train lurched forward. Bodies pressed together. Commuters stared at phones. Eleanor gripped the overhead rail, struggling to keep balance. No one offered a seat. In her world, people moved when she entered rooms. Assistants anticipated needs before she spoke. But here underground, she was just another tired face. She'd forgotten how exhausting invisibility felt. 3 feet away, James sat with Sophie on his lap, reading The Giving Tree. Her lips moved silently, tracing words with one small finger. He noticed the woman struggling to stand, not because of her expensive coat, but because of her eyes. They held an exhaustion he recognized. Not physical tiredness, but soul-deep weariness. He looked at Sophie, then at the woman. Without speaking, he stood. He lifted Sophie gently to her feet and gestured to the empty seat. Eleanor blinked. "Oh, thank you, but it's okay," James said warmly. "We're getting off soon." A lie. They had 4 more stops. Eleanor sat. Their eyes met for 5 seconds that felt eternal. Something passed between them, a recognition of shared humanity, in a city that often forgot such things existed. Then Sophie looked up at Eleanor and spoke clearly above the train's rumble. "Daddy says everyone has invisible backpacks. Maybe yours is really heavy." Eleanor's breath caught. Sophie nodded solemnly. "Daddy teaches me, give your seat when you can, because some people carry more than they show." "Right, Daddy." James touched his daughter's shoulder apologetically. "She tends to observe things. Sorry if—" "No." Eleanor's voice cracked slightly. "Don't apologize, she's right." The train pulled into 51st Street. Before the doors closed, Sophie waved. Eleanor, who hadn't genuinely smiled in months, waved back. As the train moved on, Eleanor remained in the seat a stranger had given her, her mind circling back to the child's words. Invisible backpacks. How long had hers been crushing her? At 9:30 a.m., Eleanor entered her 52nd floor boardroom. 8 men in expensive suits sat waiting. Richard Stevens, her CFO, was presenting quarterly projections. "Which brings us to restructuring," Richard said. "We eliminate 400 positions for European expansion. Numbers look significantly better in Q3. Eleanor took her seat. 400 people. 400 families. Richard barely paused. "That's business, Eleanor. Sentiment doesn't belong at this table." Heads nodded around the table. No one disagreed. No one ever did. Eleanor looked at their comfortable, confident faces, completely disconnected from the lives they'd destroy with a vote. "Approved," she heard herself say. The word tasted like ash. That night her phone rang at 10:47. Margaret Foster, her co-founder mentor, the woman who'd believed in 22-year-old Eleanor when no one else had. They'd built Whitmore Enterprises in Margaret's garage 30 years ago. Now Margaret was 65, retired upstate, watching from a distance as the company became something she barely recognized. Eleanor, honey, 3 months since your last visit. I've been busy. Maybe next. Do you remember why we started this? Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. 30 years ago, with nothing but an idea, we wanted to help people, build something meaningful. Times changed. Now it's about survival. Or about forgetting who you are. Eleanor had no answer. 3 miles south, James locked his maintenance closet on the 15th floor of Rockwell Tower. His 2 p.m. shift in meant he could pick up Sophie from school. He didn't know this building housed Whitmore Enterprises headquarters to him. It was just another place where he fixed pipes and changed light bulbs. He'd once had an office here. Different floor, different life, when people saw him. A young executive brushed past coffee sloshing onto James's freshly mopped floor. Hey man, clean this up. No sorry, no thanks. Just an order to an invisible man. Yes, sir. Right away, James said quietly. 3 years ago, I sat in an office like yours. Life changes in a heartbeat. At 3:30 p.m. outside PS 112, Sophie burst through the doors and launched herself into James's arms. Daddy, Ms. Rodriguez, loved my essay about mommy. James hugged her tight. Of course she did, sweetheart. You have your mother's gift. They took the subway to Chelsea Community Center, where James volunteered Tuesdays and Thursdays. In a small room with crayon drawings taped to cinderblock walls, he read, The Runaway Bunny to 15 Children in a Circle. Sophie sat front row, mouthing memorized words. James gave each character different voices, gruff farmer, soft mother bunny. Children laughed at his exaggerated expressions. One boy shouted a guess about what happened next. James paused, nodding seriously as if the child's opinion mattered more than anything. This was where James could breathe, where he wasn't a failure, just a father reading stories. 3 days later, Eleanor called her assistant. Jennifer, I need to find someone. Find someone. A man. Line 6 subway. Monday morning, 7:30. Early 30s, brown hair, daughter about 7. Purple backpack with dinosaurs. Ms. Whitmore, is everything okay? Just curious. A week later, a thin folder arrived. Eleanor opened it in her office, the city sprawling below. James Carter, 33, former senior project manager, Walsh & Associates, terminated during restructuring. Current maintenance technician, Rockwell Tower. Salary, $37,000 a year. Wife, Rebecca Carter, deceased. Traffic accident, Route 9. Truck driver, worked 22 hours straight. Daughter, Sophie, 7, student at PS 112. Details school tuition increasing 35% next year. $3,200 to $4,300. May exceed capacity. Additional maternal grandparents. Mitchell family consulted attorney about custody in 2022. No action taken. Eleanor closed the folder, hands trembling. This man had lost everything. Yet on a crowded subway, he'd stood for a stranger. She remembered her father's words from childhood, before the money and walls. Help people because it's right, Eleanor, not because it pays. She called her financial director. Establish a scholarship fund, anonymous, for employees' children who need support. The paperwork was clean, untraceable. Eleanor believed she was doing good. 10 days later, a letter arrived at James's apartment. James read the letter for the third time after Sophie was asleep. Dear Mr. Carter, Sophie Carter has been selected for the Educational Opportunity Scholarship. Full tuition coverage for 3 years, renewable. No application required. He frowned. He hadn't applied for any scholarships. Something wasn't right. James pulled out his 6-year-old laptop and searched Educational Opportunity Scholarship, New York. Sparse results. A newly registered nonprofit, barely 2 weeks old. No website, no history. He dug deeper using his old project management skills, following paper trails, cross-referencing data, finding hidden connections. 3 days of searching revealed the truth. The fund was financed by a Whitmore Enterprises subsidiary, Eleanor Whitmore, CEO. Her Forbes profile appeared a woman in gray standing in a corner office with New York behind her, the woman from the subway. James closed his laptop, jaw tight. She'd investigated him, found his name, address, daughter's school. Decided to help without asking. The anger rising in his chest wasn't about money. It was about something deeper that had been building for 3 years. Every pitying look, every let me help, that really meant You can't handle this yourself. He found the community center schedule online. Eleanor's company owned the adjacent lot. Public records showed site inspections every Tuesday at 4 p.m. James requested Tuesday afternoon off. If she wanted to observe his life, he'd make sure she heard the truth up close. Tuesday 4th was 0 p.m. Eleanor stood outside the community center, reviewing property reports. Her company owned the adjacent lot scheduled for demolition. But she wasn't really there for business. She wanted to see if James and Sophie were okay, if her scholarship had helped. Through the glass wall, she saw him reading to children. Sophie watched with complete adoration. The scene was so warm that Eleanor smiled despite the cold. She'd done something good. She was sure of it. Ms. Whitmore, I think we need to talk. Eleanor turned. James stood 3 feet away, expression unreadable. Sorry, do I? You know exactly who I am, and I know what you did. James stepped closer. The scholarship, educational opportunity, Whitmore Enterprises. You investigated me, found Sophie, decided to help without asking. Eleanor's composure cracked. I just wanted to. You gave me your seat. It was kind. I wanted to give back. Give back. James's voice rose, then controlled itself. You think I gave you that seat expecting something? No, I saw your daughter might need. You saw a sad single father struggling and thought, I can fix this. Throw money at it and feel good about myself. The words struck like physical blows, because they were true. That's not fair, Eleanor whispered. You didn't ask what I needed, James said, sitting on the wooden bench. You didn't ask what I wanted. You just decided because you have money and power that you knew better. His anger drained into bone-tired sadness. Do you know the hardest part of losing Rebecca? It wasn't grief or loneliness. It was how people looked at me afterward. Eleanor hesitantly sat on the bench's far end. Rebecca's parents looked at me like I was an obstacle between them and their granddaughter. James continued. They said, we have money resources. You're not capable. As if money measures love. He stared at his calloused hands. Old colleagues looked at me with pity. Poor James, from manager to janitor. As if my job defines my worth. And now you. James looked at her directly. A stranger who saw a charity project. Not a man with dignity. Not a father doing his best. Just a problem to solve. Eleanor felt tears. You're right. You're absolutely right. James looked surprised. He'd expected defensiveness, not agreement. I didn't ask what you needed, Eleanor said, voice breaking. I saw a problem and thought I had the solution. That's how I've lived 30 years. See problem, fix it, move on. I never thought about dignity, about a person's right to face their own challenges. James studied her face, seeing past the CEO to the lonely woman who'd accepted a stranger's seat. Throwing money at people isn't helping, Ms. Whitmore, he said more gently. It's just making you feel powerful. Then what should I do? Eleanor wiped her eyes. If I want to help the right way, ask, listen, treat people like they have agency over their own lives. I don't need saving. Sophie and I are doing fine. Not easy, not rich, but we're okay. That deserves respect. He stood. The scholarship, Sophie keeps it. Not because I need your money, but because she earned that opportunity. I won't let my ego hurt her. But we're done. I don't want to see you again. No debt, no gratitude. Just leave us alone. James walked inside without looking back. Eleanor sat alone on the bench, surrounded by children's chalk drawings on concrete houses, families' smiling sons. For the first time in 30 years, Eleanor Whitmore felt genuinely ashamed. That evening in the boardroom, Richard presented the layoff plan again. Eleanor couldn't focus. She kept seeing James's face, hearing his words. Proceed with 400 terminations next month, Richard concluded. No, Eleanor said. Silence. Find another way, Eleanor continued. Those 400 people have invisible backpacks we don't see. Families, children, lives that matter more than quarterly numbers. Richard's face reddened. Eleanor, we've discussed. Discuss it again. 2 weeks. Different solution or find a different CFO. After the board filed out, whispering, Eleanor called Margaret. You sound different, Margaret said. Someone told me I've been using power to control instead of help. Eleanor's voice cracked. He was right. What will you do? I don't know, but I have to change. 2 months passed. Eleanor didn't contact James respecting his wishes, but she changed her company's operations. She canceled the layoffs, cutting executive compensation, instead including her own. She started real employee listening sessions, conversations over lunch, not formal meetings. She funded childcare programs for employees with young children. The board grumbled. Analysts questioned her edge. Eleanor didn't care. For the first time in decades, she was building something good, not just profitable. Then one morning, Jennifer rushed in with a newspaper. "Ms. Whitmore, you need to see this. Custody battle, Carter family dispute heads to court." Eleanor read, heart sinking. James's in-laws, Robert and Patricia Mitchell, had filed for custody of Sophie. Their argument: James was financially unstable and dependent on charitable aid, the scholarship. Expensive lawyers versus legal aid. "Oh God," Eleanor whispered. "I caused this." She wanted to fix it immediately, but stopped herself. James said to leave them alone. If she interfered now, wasn't she proving his point that she couldn't stop controlling? She called Margaret, desperate. "I want to help, but if I interfere, I'm doing what he accused me of. But if I do nothing, they tear that family apart." Margaret paused. "Eleanor, maybe this time ask him what he wants." Eleanor sat at her desk for an hour staring at blank paper. Then she picked up a pen and wrote by hand. "Mr. Carter, I know you said we were done. I've respected that. But I learned about the custody case. My scholarship is being used against you. Part of this is my fault. I'm not offering help. I'm asking, do you want me to do anything? If the answer is nothing, I'll respect that. But if you need something, not charity, not rescue, but real partnership, please, let me know. You taught me about dignity. Now I want to learn how to help the right way. Eleanor Whitmore." She mailed it, then waited. 5 days later, James sat at his kitchen table, the letter smoothed flat. Sophie was doing homework, humming. He'd almost thrown it away, but something stopped him. "If you need something, not charity, not rescue, but real partnership." Partnership. Not, "I'll fix this." Just, "Do you want help?" First time in 3 years anyone had asked instead of decided. "Daddy," Sophie looked up. "What's wrong?" James debated lying, then chose truth. "Grandma and Grandpa Mitchell want you to live with them. They say Daddy isn't good enough." Sophie's eyes filled. "But I don't want to leave. I want to stay with Daddy." James pulled her close. "I won't let that happen, I promise." Sophie looked at the letter. "Is that from the subway lady, the one who looked sad?" "You remember her." "I remember people who are kind. Mommy taught me." Sophie picked up the letter. "She wants to help. Why won't you let her?" "It's complicated, sweetheart. Mommy used to say, if you can help, you should help. Maybe," Sophie's voice was small, "maybe it's okay to let people help us too." James looked at his 7-year-old daughter, who understood what he'd been too proud to accept. That night after Sophie slept, James called the number. Eleanor answered immediately. "Mr. Carter." "James, call me James." "James, thank you for calling. About the custody case, I need help. Not money. Someone who understands the system, someone with resources. My legal aid lawyer is good, but the Mitchells have a team." "I'm ready to help," Eleanor said. "But I want to be clear, this is partnership. I don't make decisions for you. Every step we discuss." James felt something release in his chest. "That's exactly what I need. Thank you, Eleanor." They met at a Queen's cafe, not her office. James had insisted no power imbalance. Eleanor arrived in a simple sweater. James wore jeans. Equal ground. "I spoke with my attorney," Eleanor began. "Custody cases are complex. The Mitchells will claim you're unfit, financially unstable, inadequate conditions. They'll point to everything I can't provide," James agreed. "But they can't deny you're a good father. Sophie loves you. She's happy. Courts don't just see love. They see money." Eleanor leaned forward. "So we prove best interest isn't money. It's love, stability, community." They strategized for an hour. Gather witnesses, teach your neighbors, community staff. Get psychological evaluation. Document James's parenting. Show Sophie was thriving. "I'll cover a better attorney," Eleanor said carefully. "Consider it a loan. Pay back when you can, or don't. This is about doing right." James nodded. "I'll pay back. Might take years, but I will." Eleanor smiled. "I know. Over 3 months, they built their case. Ms. Rodriguez testified, Sophie is wonderful, happy, adjusted, helpful. Mr. Carter attends every meeting, never late for pickup. That's more than many wealthy parents. Mrs. Chen, the 70-year-old neighbor. James is the best neighbor I've had. Fixes my sink, carries groceries. Sophie is polite, they're good people. Dr. Patel's evaluation. Sophie is emotionally healthy with strong paternal attachment. Separation would cause significant harm. Eleanor didn't just help logistically, she came to the community center to learn. Sat in James's reading sessions. Watched how he connected with children. Once Sophie asked her, "What do you do?" "I work with a company, trying to help people." Sophie tilted her head. "Like Daddy helped you on the subway." Eleanor felt something shift. "Yes, Sophie, exactly like that." The trial lasted 3 days. Day 1. The Mitchell's attorney attacked. "Mr. Carter, you earn $37,000 annually. One-bedroom apartment. Your daughter has no private room. Is that adequate?" James stayed calm. "Sophie has her own bed. I sleep on the couch. She has books, toys, and most importantly, a father who loves her. The Mitchells can provide private school travel, everything." James's voice was fierce. "But they can't give what she needs most, her parent. I'm Sophie's father. Rebecca was her mother. Even though Rebecca is gone, our love remains." Patricia Mitchell testified with streaming tears. "We just want what's best. Rebecca was our only child. Sophie is all we have." Cross-examination. "In 3 years, how many visits?" Patricia faltered. "We've been busy, but we send gifts. 4 times in 3 years. Meanwhile, Mr. Carter has been with Sophie every day. Who's really her family?" Day 2, James's witnesses. Ms. Rodriguez described Sophie's success and well-being. Mrs. Chen spoke of witness kindness. Sarah from the community center talked about James's dedication. Dr. Patel presented her evaluation, showing secure attachment. Then Eleanor took the stand. "Ms. Whitmore, you're CEO of a $3 billion corporation. How do you know Mr. Carter?" Eleanor met his eyes. "He gave me his seat on the subway 6 months ago. Didn't know who I was. Just thought I needed to sit." "You want to help because of that?" "No, I'm testifying because he taught me something I'd forgotten. That kindness doesn't need reasons. That dignity matters more than money. And the best father isn't the richest, it's the one who loves unconditionally." She paused. "James Carter might not be wealthy, but he's the best father Sophie could have. If this court takes that away because of money, the system is broken." Silence filled the courtroom. Day 3. Sophie testified in Judge Martinez's private chambers. "Sophie, do you know why you're here?" Sophie nodded. "Grandma and Grandpa want me to live with them." "Do you want to?" Sophie shook her head, tears falling. "I love them, but I want to stay with Daddy. Daddy reads to me every night, makes dinosaur pancakes, says I'm like Mommy, strong and kind." "Do you remember Mommy?" "Yes, Daddy says Mommy's always in my heart. Daddy teaches me to do things Mommy would be proud of, helping people and being nice." Sophie's final words, "Grandma and Grandpa can give me lots of things, but Daddy gives what matters most. I feel loved every day." 2 weeks later, the packed courtroom waited as Judge Martinez read her verdict. "The court has carefully considered all evidence. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell are well-intentioned and love their granddaughter. But love cannot replace a parent's role." James held his breath. "Mr. James Carter has proven exemplary parenting. Sophie is thriving under his care. Separating her from her only parent would cause more harm than good." Judge Martinez looked at James directly. "Custody of Sophie Carter remains with James Carter. Case dismissed." James covered his face, shoulders shaking. Eleanor in the back row wiped away tears. Sophie ran to her father. James caught her holding tight. "Daddy, I don't have to leave." "Never, sweetheart, never." Outside, James approached the devastated Mitchells. "I know you love Sophie. She loves you. You're still her grandparents." Patricia cried real tears now. "We already lost Rebecca. We were afraid of losing Sophie." "You're not losing Sophie, but you need to respect that she has a father. I won't prevent your relationship if you respect my role." Robert nodded, voice breaking. "We're sorry, James." It wasn't perfect forgiveness, but it was a start. Eleanor was heading to her car when James called out. "Eleanor, wait." She turned. James extended his hand. "Thank you, not just for the lawyer, for being there, for listening, for not trying to control." Eleanor shook his hand. "I should thank you. You taught me to be better." Comfortable silence. "Do you have time for coffee?" James asked. "I want to talk about something." Eleanor smiled. "I have time." 3 weeks later, same Queen's Cafe. "I've been thinking about what you said," James began, "about changing how your company operates, helping people the right way." "Yes, I'm still learning. I have a proposal. Does your company have employee support programs, childcare family assistance, basic programs?" I never paid much attention. That's the problem. CEOs don't pay attention because they don't live these struggles. But your employees fight battles like I did. They need real support, not just paper policies. Eleanor listened without interrupting. "What if you built something real, not for PR, actually helping families?" Eleanor's eyes brightened. "I want to, but I need someone who understands from the inside, someone who's lived it." James hesitated. "You're thinking—" "I'm thinking you should work for me, not as janitor, as director of family and community programs." She continued quickly. "Salary $75,000 starting. Flexible hours, you need to be there for Sophie. 15th floor office. You report to HR director, not me. You make decisions without needing my approval every step." James was stunned. "That's more than double. Fair pay for director level. Not a favor. Real work." "But I don't have an MBA." "You have something no MBA can teach," Eleanor interrupted. "You've walked in their shoes. You know what it's like when systems fail and how to build something that won't fail others." James looked at his hands. "I need to think. Take all the time you need." That night, James told Sophie, "You wouldn't be a janitor, Daddy." "There's nothing wrong with that work, sweetheart. It's honest." "I know, but you could help more people at the new job, like you helped Miss Eleanor, and she helped us. That's good, right?" James realized his daughter understood. That's partnership, not rescue. Building something better together. Sophie hugged him. Mommy would be proud. James accepted the next day. 18 months after James accepted the position, transformation was undeniable. James built the family and community program from nothing. On-site childcare served 50 employees' children. Career coaching helped single parents advance. An emergency fund supported sudden financial crises. But the real impact extended beyond the company. Eleanor and James co-founded 12 community centers, Rebecca's Legacy Fund, offering after-school programs, job training counseling, and legal aid, all operated by local communities. Eleanor transformed from lonely CEO to someone who knew families by name, understood that success wasn't stock prices, but changed lives. James found purpose again, meaningful work Rebecca would have been proud of. Sophie, now 9, volunteered at centers helping younger children, organizing book drives, living her parents' values. The Mitchells began visiting once monthly, not from obligation but genuine connection. Patricia even volunteered at one center. Not perfect, but real. One evening after the 12th center's opening, Eleanor and James stood on its rooftop watching city lights. "Thank you, James," Eleanor said. "You saved me." James smiled. "We saved each other. I gave you a seat. You learned to listen. You taught me accepting help isn't weakness. I taught you giving must be done right. Real partnership. Real partnership." They didn't kiss, no forced romance. But they shook hands as equal partners who'd found something more valuable than love or money: mutual respect. Shared purpose, understanding that the best relationships aren't romantic but built on common values. Their partnership had evolved beyond professional courtesy. Eleanor attended Sophie's school plays, sitting beside James. James had monthly dinners at Eleanor's penthouse, no longer empty, but filled with photos of families they'd helped. It wasn't romance. It was deeper: two people who'd found purpose by helping each other find theirs. Margaret, visiting from upstate, smiled, watching them work together. "You two remind me why we started this company. Not to build an empire, to build a community." 2 years after their first meeting on a Tuesday morning, James rode Line 6 to work. Business casual, now iPad instead of mop. Sophie stood beside him reading Harry Potter. Not far away, Eleanor was also on the train. She still rode, occasionally staying grounded. They noticed each other exchange friendly nods. No awkwardness, just colleagues who deeply respected each other. The train stopped at 51st Street. A young man in his 20s boarded worn jeans, tired eyes, night shift written on his face. An elderly woman followed, breathing heavily, clutching groceries. One empty seat. The young man looked at the seat, looked at the woman, then stepped back with a gentle smile. "Please, ma'am, you need it more." The woman's face lit up. "Oh, thank you, dear. Very kind." The young man stood by the door expecting nothing. James and Eleanor saw it all. Their eyes met across the crowded car. They didn't speak, didn't need to, just smiled, recognition, understanding, hope. This was it. Not grand gestures or foundation checks, just a stranger standing so another could sit. James walked into Chelsea Community Center, poured coffee, sat at his desk. Meetings today, families to help, programs to build, lives to touch. Sophie arrived after school, leading younger children to the reading room. She opened a book, voice warm. "Once upon a time, there was a tree who loved a boy." Eleanor, 47 floors above, looked at her desk photo, James, Sophie, and herself at the first center's opening. A team, a family of purpose. Somewhere in New York, on a subway, in a street, in an office or apartment, someone was giving up their seat. Someone was offering help. Someone was learning that kindness doesn't need reasons, because sometimes the smallest acts create the biggest changes. Because everyone carries invisible backpacks and the only way forward is together. Because power isn't about what you take, it's about what you choose to give. 3 years ago, two strangers met on a subway. One gave a seat, the other learned to receive grace. Together they changed not just each other, but thousands more. Rebecca's Legacy Fund has supported over 5,000 families across New York, but numbers don't matter as much as individual stories. This is one of them, and it's happening somewhere right now in your city too.